All right, let's dive in. Today, we're looking at leading, like Elon. It's a book outline you sent over.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about this. Elon Musk, I mean, Tesla, SpaceX, he's really shaking things up.
Yeah.
And you want to know, like, how does he lead? How does he make it all happen?
Yeah.
So what are some of the big things that stand out to you in this outline about his style?
Well, right away, the outline really focuses on the importance of vision for Musk. Like a super clear and ambitious vision, not
Mhm.
just like setting goals, but creating this narrative that people can really latch onto,
Yep.
get inspired by. Like take
Mhm.
Tesla, for instance.
Right.
It's not just about, building cars. It's
Yeah.
about like this whole transition to sustainable energy.
Right, right.
And SpaceX,
Yeah.
they're not just launching rockets.
All right.
The goal is to make humanity multiplanetary.
It's almost like these visions are bigger than just, a company mission statement. They
Yes.
tap into something much bigger, something that people connect with, employees and the public.
Absolutely. And that's a huge lesson for any leader, right?
Yeah.
If you think about like your own work,
Yeah.
the projects you lead, what's that bigger picture? What gives meaning to what you're doing?
Yay.
How can you kind of articulate that vision
Yeah.
so that it really gets everyone on the same page?
I love that. Now, the outline makes it clear that Musk isn't just like dreaming big and delegating, right?
Right. Yeah.
He's really hands-on. What are some of the examples of that really stuck out to you?
Well, the book outline mentions how like deeply involved he was in the Model 3, the Tesla Model 3,
Mm-hmm.
like design and production, spending hours on the factory floor, even sleeping there, like during those crunch times.
Wow.
It's not typical for, someone at his level to be so like in the trenches.
No, not at all.
And he's like that at SpaceX too, really digging into the engineering details, pushing his teams to come up with innovative solutions.
Makes you wonder, though, is that level of involvement sustainable, like long term? I mean, there's only so much time.
That's the big question.
And uh, wouldn't it be better to empower teams to make those decisions on their own?
Yeah,
At some point.
that's a balance, right? Like
Yeah.
knowing when to be hands-on and when to
Yeah.
delegate. And I think from the outline, it seems like
Yeah.
that's something Musk is still figuring out.
Yeah.
It's definitely a cautionary tale,
Mm-hmm.
about burnout and all that for
Right.
leaders.
Okay, so we have this big vision, the hands-on approach, but there's also this thing that the outline talks about, first principles thinking.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is exactly
Yeah.
and how it works?
So it's kind of like stripping away all the assumptions and preconceived notions
Okay.
and getting down to the fundamental truths of the situation.
Yeah.
Musk used this, to really change the space industry. Everyone thought rockets had to be super expensive.
Right.
But instead of just accepting that, he and his team at SpaceX,
Yeah.
they broke down the cost of every single part. Like, what is this actually made of? What should these raw materials cost?
Right.
And by like relentlessly doing that,
Yeah.
they were able to reduce the cost of building rockets significantly
Wow.
and disrupt the whole industry.
So it's about constantly questioning, challenging the way things are typically done.
Yeah.
How can someone use this kind of thinking in their own work,
Yeah.
especially if they're not, building rockets?
Well, first principles thinking, it's not just for engineers or scientists.
Right.
It's a mental framework that you can apply to like anything.
Oops.
Let's say you're doing a marketing campaign, for example.
Okay.
Instead of just following, the best practices,
Right.
which are often based on like assumptions and old data,
Yeah.
you could use first principles thinking to question everything.
Okay.
What's the real goal here? Who's the target audience and what do they actually need?
Right. Right.
What are the most effective ways to reach them? By kind of deconstructing the problem and rebuilding your strategy,
Yeah.
you can find some innovative approaches
I see. I see.
that maybe you wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
So insightful. Instead of just doing what's always been done,
Right.
we need to challenge those assumptions.
Really powerful. Now, the book outline also talks about Musk's organizational structure and communication style.
Yeah.
It's pretty different from the typical, top-down hierarchy.
Yeah. He's known for promoting a flat organizational structure.
Okay.
Open communication is really central to that.
Yeah.
He believes in getting rid of unnecessary bureaucracy and letting people share ideas, challenge assumptions,
Okay.
and like communicate directly with each other, even across different departments.
That sounds good, but wouldn't that be chaotic?
Yeah, you could have a lot of trust and transparency.
Yeah.
The book outline, I think, suggests that Musk creates this culture where um, people feel comfortable speaking their minds, sharing their expertise, even like challenging him directly. Yeah.
He values that input from everyone,
Wow.
recognizing that, like, the best ideas can come from anywhere.
But how realistic is that for most of us, Most of us work in traditional companies with layers of management
Right.
and
It's a good point.
those hierarchies.
Implementing a totally flat structure might not be practical in every situation.
Right.
But the takeaway here is that open communication. You can encourage that,
Yeah.
even within existing hierarchies.
How would you suggest people do that, like specifically?
Well, you can think about, like, having regular brainstorming sessions
Sure.
where people from different departments can come together.
Yeah.
You can encourage people to share their ideas directly with senior management,
Right.
maybe skipping the usual chain of command.
I see.
There are also tools and platforms that make it easier for open dialogue and knowledge sharing.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Another thing that stood out in the outline was this almost fearless approach to risk taking. It seems like he embraces failure as like a key part of innovation.
Yeah, the outline talks about SpaceX's approach to rocket development.
Mm-hmm.
They do tons of test flights knowing that some of them are going to fail.
Wow.
Each failure is seen as like a learning opportunity, providing data to improve the design.
Right.
It's very different from, the failure is not an option mentality
Yeah.
that you see in a lot of companies.
Definitely a different mindset. But doesn't that lead to reckless decisions?
Yeah, that's where the calculated part of calculated risk-taking comes in.
Okay.
It seems like Musk really assesses the potential downsides
Uh,
and has plans to mitigate the damage.
yeah.
It's pushing boundaries, but being prepared for setbacks.
So it's like a calculated gamble, driven by a belief in the end goals. I
Yeah.
think we touched on this earlier, but it like keeps coming up in the outline. The intensity of Musk's work ethic
Yeah.
and the potential downsides.
Yeah, there's this a real concern about burnout
Right.
and this unrelenting pressure to achieve these huge goals.
Yeah. We should definitely talk about that more in the next part of our deep dive.
I agree. It's important to look at both the positives and the negatives
Right. Yeah.
to get a complete picture. It's funny, though, because even though people talk about how demanding Musk is,
Yeah.
the outline kind of suggests that's part of the appeal
Oh, interesting.
for people who work for him. Like, everyone's united behind this huge mission,
Right. Right.
pushing boundaries, working towards something really extraordinary.
It's that feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
But how do you get that kind of dedication without,
Yeah,
burning people out?
it's a tough one.
The outline, it even mentions this burnout culture specifically.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance for sure.
Yeah.
The outline doesn't really give like a clear solution, but it talks about the importance of like communication, right?
Yeah.
Setting realistic expectations
Oh,
and
wow.
celebrating the wins along the way, not just pushing people to their limits,
Right.
but recognizing and rewarding them.
Makes sense, yeah. It's got to be both, right? High performance and appreciation.
Yeah.
Speaking of talent, I noticed something interesting about how Musk hires.
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem to care too much about traditional credentials,
Right.
like degrees and stuff.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Mm.
He's focused on raw talent, like problem-solving abilities.
Uh-huh.
The outline, there's this example of him hiring people from totally different backgrounds.
Oh, wow.
Some didn't even have like formal qualifications.
Oh.
He hired them because they were just like super skilled and
Yeah.
passionate about the mission.
I love that. He's
Yeah.
looking for people who can think critically,
Right.
adapt quickly, solve problems.
He may.
It's so refreshing because
Yeah.
we live in a world that often prioritizes pedigree over potential.
Yeah.
How many brilliant minds are we missing out on because they don't fit the traditional mold?
It makes you think, right?
Yeah.
Are we valuing the right things? Are we
Mhm.
creating environments where everyone feels empowered
Right.
to
Yeah.
contribute?
Okay, so we've got the vision, the hands-on style, first principles thinking, organizational structure, risk-taking, and now this talent thing.
It's a lot, yeah.
Is there like a common thread running through all of these? Like one thing that really defines Musk's leadership?
I think if I had to pick one, it's this this commitment to adaptability. like
Yeah.
always iterating, always evolving.
Okay.
Tesla and SpaceX, they're constantly changing
Mm-hmm.
based on feedback, on new information.
Can you give me an example of that, like how that actually works?
Sure, think about the Starship, the SpaceX Starship.
Okay.
The design has changed so many times.
Really?
They incorporate lessons learned from every single test,
Wow.
even the ones that, blew up.
So they learned from those explosions.
Yeah,
Wow.
this constant refinement,
Yeah.
this willingness to learn from mistakes and adapt quickly. I think that's really key to Musk's approach.
It's not about sticking to the plan no matter what. It's about being flexible,
Yeah.
open to change, even if it means, admitting you were wrong,
Yeah, yeah.
starting over.
Which can be hard, for some leaders
Oh, totally.
who like to be in control, who
Yeah.
value predictability.
It's about a growth mindset, right?
Exactly.
Like understanding that you're always learning,
Yes.
always adapting.
Yeah, it's not about being right all the time.
Right.
It's about that willingness to improve.
And that ties back to what we were saying about embracing failure. It's
Yeah.
all connected. Okay, before we move on, I want to touch on one more thing from the outline.
Okay.
Musk seems to be both incredibly customer-focused
Yeah.
and mission-driven.
Yeah.
How does he do that? Because
Oh.
sometimes those things feel at odds.
Tough, right? The outline suggests that he does it by aligning the company's mission with, like, what the customers actually want and need.
Okay.
Like, take Tesla again.
Yeah,
Their mission is about sustainable energy, which benefits the planet,
of course.
but it also benefits customers who want high-performance, eco-friendly cars.
But isn't there always that tension between, doing good for the world
Yeah.
and making money?
Right.
How often do those two things perfectly align?
It's true. There are going to be trade-offs.
Yeah.
But the outline gives examples of Musk making decisions that put the long-term goals and customer satisfaction
Okay.
above short-term profits.
Interesting.
Think about when Tesla open-sourced their patents.
Oh, yeah.
That helps the whole electric vehicle industry, even competitors.
Wow.
It's bold,
Yeah.
but it shows their commitment to,
Right.
accelerating sustainable energy adoption.
It's like he's playing the long game,
Yeah, exactly.
building trust, showing customers he cares about something bigger than just profit.
Yeah, and it seems to be working, right?
Yeah.
Tesla's got super loyal customers. SpaceX is inspiring a whole new generation.
That's amazing.
It proves that you can be purpose-driven and successful.
So it's about finding that place where your mission and your customers' needs meet.
Yeah, like that sweet spot.
Okay, we've covered so much today. It's incredible.
I know, it's a lot.
Vision, leadership, first principles, structure, risk, talent, customer
No,
focus.
but,
It's clear there's no easy recipe to be like Elon.
Yeah.
But I think we need to talk about the other side of this too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The outline also talks about the challenges, the criticisms of Musk's approach.
Right. It's important to look at the whole picture.
So let's get into that in the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
So we've talked a lot about what makes Elon Musk such a compelling leader.
Yeah.
But like we mentioned, there's another side to all of this.
Right.
The book outline, it doesn't shy away from some of the criticisms, the challenges that people have brought up. And I think it's important to talk about those too.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the biggest ones, and we've touched on this, is that intense work culture at Tesla and SpaceX.
Right.
The outline actually uses the phrase burnout culture.
It's a strong phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how much of that is just, part of the deal
Yeah.
when you're trying to do such ambitious things?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a sense of urgency at those companies.
Right.
They're tackling huge problems, pushing the boundaries of technology.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment.
Right.
But we also know that pushing people too hard can lead to burnout,
Of course.
health issues, but eventually it affects productivity and creativity.
It's such a tricky thing to balance.
It is.
How do you create a culture of excellence
Right.
without, burning everyone out?
Exactly.
The outline talks about some of the ways Musk tries to do that.
Yeah.
Like clear communication, setting realistic expectations. But I mean, is that enough to really offset that pressure?
That's what everyone's trying to figure out.
Yeah.
It's a question for all leaders,
Mhm.
not just, in tech.
Right, right.
How do you inspire and motivate without creating a culture of fear or overwork?
The outline also mentions Musk's tendency to overpromise.
Yeah.
set really ambitious timelines that maybe aren't always realistic?
Right.
Is that just part of his personality?
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the one hand, those ambitious goals, they can be super motivating.
Right, they drive innovation.
Yeah, but if you constantly miss those deadlines,
Yeah.
it can lead to disappointment, a loss of trust.
It's funny because it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before,
Huh.
about adaptability.
Right.
Musk is willing to change course, to adjust as needed,
Yes.
but it seems like he often starts with goals that are, like, almost impossible to meet.
Right.
Is that intentional, or is it just, bad judgment?
Hard to say. Maybe he uses those timelines to push his teams harder,
Right.
knowing that even if they don't hit the target, they'll still achieve amazing things.
Right.
Or maybe he's just overly optimistic.
Yeah, it could be.
I think the takeaway here is that transparency is really important.
Totally.
You got to be honest, even when things aren't going as planned.
So it's about acknowledging those roadblocks, adjusting expectations along the way.
Yeah, which is another form of adaptability, right?
Exactly. It all comes back to that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how all these different parts of his leadership style,
Yeah,
they're all connected in a way.
it's definitely a complicated picture.
Yeah.
That's what makes this whole conversation so interesting.
It really is.
There's no magic formula to
Either.
be like Elon.
But by looking at all these different elements,
Right.
the vision, the hands-on approach, the risk-taking, the iteration, the
Yeah.
focus on the customer and the mission.
I think we can all learn something,
Absolutely.
adapt those lessons to our own situations.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
It's really made me think about leadership in a whole new way.
I'm glad.
And who knows, maybe this will inspire some of our listeners to pick up the book.
Yeah, leading like Elon.
Explore these ideas even further.
That would be great.
It's been a pleasure breaking this down with you.
Likewise, thanks for having me.
To all our listeners out there, keep learning, keep questioning.
And keep pushing those boundaries.
And remember, it's not just about the destination.
It's about the journey.
It's about the impact we make along the way.